Spring training win-loss record and stats don't matter, but how a guy is performing, what he's doing to get those stats, does. Let's talk about who's impressing and who's not in spring training. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, March 11th, your source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can find all my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started today. Spring training record doesn't matter. Right? The Braves happen to have like the second best record of all 30 teams in spring training. They have a .733 winning percentage and they're 11-4 as of Wednesday morning. Only the San Francisco Giants, who have a winning percentage of .824, ridiculous, are doing better than the Braves. But I don't necessarily know I know that spring training performance doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to the regular season. Last year, the best winning percentage in all of spring training was the San Francisco Giants. They finished 81-81. The third best in all of baseball was the Kansas City Royals, and they finished 82-80. Now, between them, I will give them credit, between them was the Toronto Blue Jays, and they went to Game 7 of the World Series. So it helps, probably, a little bit. I don't know. But the way that individual players are performing, not necessarily the stats, but what we're seeing out of them can make a difference. And I've watched as many spring training games for the Braves as have been aired. Not all of them have been broadcast. I've listened to quite a few of them while working and doing other things as well. But let's talk about some of the good process that's standing out and some of the struggles that are standing out. And I think one of the good process things we have to talk about is Michael Harris drawing walks. We all know the main issue for Michael Harris has been chase, has been the inability to not go after a pitch off the plate, expand the zone, and either strike out or generate very suboptimal contact. And shout out to friend of the show, Ken Segura, the AJC, who talked to Michael Harris in spring after we saw a couple walks early in Grapefruit League play. And this is intentional. Michael's trying to be a little... What I gathered from the article is, one, Michael's trying to be more defined in what his plan is at the plate. And two, being more disciplined about not losing the plan as he gets into the at-bat. So something that he's trying to do, he's trying to be more selective, which, great. One of the things that Tim Hires has been teaching from when he first got here was being more selective as to what you swung at and trying to always fire off your A-swing at your pitch, at a hittable pitch that is in your wheelhouse. And so Michael talked about, based on where he's comfortable hitting and scouting reports and all of that, early in the at-bat, he's looking for a specific spot in the strike zone, right? And we don't know what it is, right? It could be middle in, it could be up, whatever. We don't know. But he's looking at a specific part of the strike zone, and he's committing to be aggressive at pitches in that spot and not swinging if the pitch is not in that location. And, Walt Weiss talked about, that's kind of the Achilles heel, but is him not necessarily being good at staying within the strike zone. Quote, I think the swing decisions, that's probably the next step in his maturity as a hitter, the next step that puts him closer to stardom in this league. It's a quote from Walt Weiss from early in March. And to clarify, everybody wants to hit strikes. Like, your goal is to hit strikes hard. But I do think the fact that we've seen him draw some walks, and I put these on social media sometimes when I notice it in the game, he'll get, I remember one, he got down 2-2, or it was 2-2. So you're technically down in the count because the pitcher has 2 pitches to work with, you have 1. And Harris took a slider down and away. And those pitches that run off the plate away from him have always been an issue because, especially early in the ball, like after release, it looks like it's going to be a strike and it takes you out of the zone. And he was really good at not chasing those pitches. Now, he is still willing to expand the zone with 2 strikes. Everybody does that, right? I put one of those at-bats on social media, and somebody commented, he's like, you're not going to criticize him for that swing that he put into play. It was the worst swing. It was the second worst swing of the at-bat. And I'm like, or the second worst pitch location of the at-bat. I'm like, well, he had 2 strikes, and there had just been an inside fastball called for a strike, even though it was off the plate. So, of course, he swung at that pitch when it came in again with 2 strikes. But really heartened by that. And he broke down one of his at-bats with Kennigan. You should go read the article, ajc.com. Just talking about he took 2 fastballs off the plate, got him up 2-0. And, quote here, I know he wants to kind of get ahead and throw strikes, but he missed the first 2, so it's a hitter's count. I can't miss the fastball if he threw it, and he threw it. And for context here, this is Trevor Martin of the Rays, and that pitch was down the middle, right? He's down, the pitcher is down 2-0, so he grooves a fastball. Michael's looking for it, and he gets it. From Michael, quote, had to put a good swing on it, got some runs out of it. And I remember right, I think it scored 2, right? He hit it like a line drive to center field. I've been really heartened with what I've seen from Michael. I'm not going to say he's going to run a 350 or a 400 on base. That's just not going to happen. And we do have to remember that 21 plate appearances, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. His opponent quality, measured by Baseball Reference, is 7.1, which is just above AA. So on the whole, the average skill level of the pitchers he's faced has been just above a AA level. Now, I'll counter that with saying one of those 3 walks was against Paul Skeens, who is clearly a major leaguer and a very, very good one at that. But you kind of have to be a little mindful here of some of these. Another guy that we've seen some really good process has been Mike Yastrzemski, and specifically Yastrzemski versus lefties. He's not faced them a ton in his career, especially not recently, but and I still don't expect him to be like the starter every day against lefties. But I do think when you look at what he's done this spring, on the occasions he's had to face a lefty starter, I've specifically been watching that since Jurickson Profar was suspended for the year. He's looked like he is not struggling with lefties, right? It's a lot of hard contact. He's not getting fooled a ton. Again, process kind of over results. His overall results for spring training are absurd. Mike Yastrzemski is tied to the team league in homers with 4. He's hitting .474 with an 1158 slug. Not on base, slug. He's got 5 extra base hits in his 9 total hits in 19 total at-bats. He scored 8 runs, driven in 6. 1723 OPS. It's nuts. But again, process over results in spring. I've been really impressed with the way his at-bats versus lefties have gone. I still don't think you're going to leave him out there as the starter against lefties every day. But if he's in the game and he has to face a lefty reliever, I'm no longer going to assume it's an automatic out. It's a situation where, and again, these teams have more information than us, right? They know his career numbers against lefties. They can probably break down a lot better than I can with their resources exactly where he's liable, where he struggles, and all of that. But the process hasn't looked bad. In just a second, let's talk about some of the pitching process that I've seen that I've liked, and what guys have really done well as who has been struggling and needs to do more. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all the IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 bars, 8 hydration sticks, 4 coffee sticks. All these products are clean label certified, entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, artificial ingredients. Tons of flavor combinations across all of these things. Mint chocolate chip protein bars, blueberry pomegranate hydration mixes, vanilla spice coffee. They even have limited edition and seasonal flavors too. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including that Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64,000. Again, MLB to 64000 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Message and data rates may apply. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about some of the arms that we see and how they have improved so far in spring. And one guy that I specifically want to shout out, not because he's a friend of the show, but because I have been impressed with the improvements that he has made, is Hayden Harris. The Georgia Southern fella has done a better job at generating whiffs, and specifically with his fastball. Like, what I don't necessarily know if people realize is last year in his major league sample, he didn't face a ton of major league hitters. He threw 43 fastballs in his major league stint last year, but he got 0 swinging strikes on those. I think it was 10 of them were put into play. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them were hard hit balls, right? Gave up, I believe it was a double and a couple singles there. He had a bunch of them fouled off, and he had like 7 or 8 of them as called strikes, but not a single batter swung and miss on that fastball. Like, just none of them were missing the fastball. So far in spring, he's been better. He's thrown right around 69 fastballs so far, and he has gotten 9 swinging strikes on those fastballs. Now, some of them have been minor. Actually, kind of a lot of them have been minor leaguers, and that's the spring training issue here. His opponent quality in spring per Baseball Reference is 5.6, which is actually a little bit it was below AA. But when you look at the names, there are some top prospects on here, and there are a couple major leaguers on here. He got Johnny DeLuca of the Rays, swing and miss. Dominic Keegan, who is a catcher for the Rays, one of their, I think it's the Rays. Yes, Rays. I was confusing him with Mike Elko of the White Sox for a second. Yes, Dominic Keegan of the Rays got him on a punch-out with a fastball. Emmanuel Rodriguez, Kalai Rosario, both of those guys are top outfield prospects of the Twins. He got them on swinging strikes. So it's not entirely major leaguers. It is still some prospects. But you are Gabriel Gonzalez, also a talented young outfielder of the Twins. But you're seeing him get a little bit better at using that pitch in the zone and getting swing and miss. I am still a little bit concerned, and I've talked to people, other people. It's not just me saying this. Other people are saying this. I've talked to people in the organization that have said this. There is still a little bit of a question about, at the major league level, how viable his stuff is. The good news here is he's throwing a little bit harder. We've already seen him touch 94.6 in spring. He's got multiple pitches over 94, whereas his hardest pitch in the majors last year was in the 92 range. The counterpoint to that is, this is the beginning of the season. That was the end of the season with fatigue and everything. But If he's throwing if he can touch 94, 95 versus touching 92 and averaging 91 or whatever, it's a much more viable fastball at the major league level. And you can project a little bit of better performance to start, or I guess in the majors, than maybe what he got last year. So that was just something that I was concerned about. I've always been a fan of his. I've always rooted for him. That was what I was concerned about with his debut last year, was given the velocity on that fastball, is he going to miss bats with it? And so far this spring, he's got more velocity, and some of the top prospects that he has faced and major leaguers like a Johnny DeLuca, he's been able to miss bats. So I like that. James Karinchak. Not going to go into detail. I've talked about him plenty, but another guy who has really, really impressed me in spring. I like what I've seen. I like how effective he's been. Let's talk about some guys that I'm not concerned, but I am trying to be a little mindful of expectations based on what we've seen so far. And one of them, and this is not going to be popular, but JR Ritchie. I kind of want to be clear up front. I am a JR Ritchie fan. This is no hating on JR Ritchie. His spring stats have not looked bad. Okay? When you look at what he's doing, he's allowed 3 runs on 2 hits in 8 innings. His opponent quality is 7.5, so it's between AA and AAA. And we've seen him against some major league lineups. The issue that I have is he's not missing a lot of bats. And when we have seen him miss bats in spring, it's been mostly that outing against the Red Sox, where he was in there at the end of the game and not right behind Chris Sale, meaning that he was facing a lot of backups and minor league pieces. And he was carving them up. But facing the major leaguers, he struggled a little bit more. And so I just want us to be a little cautious about, if you call up JR Ritchie right now, or if you have him on the roster for opening day, or if you call him up in the first week of the season, do I think he can be successful and get you through some outings? Yes. Do I think that he is ready to stick in the rotation every single day? I don't know. Okay. That Boston outing, he picked up, of his 8 strikeouts this spring, he picked up 5 in those 2 innings. He gave up 1 solo shot. It was the only hit he allowed, but 5 strikeouts. Against Minnesota the week before, this was late February, right behind Chris Sale, so covering innings 3 and 4, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Starting the game against Toronto on Tuesday, 4 innings, 4 walks, a hit batter, and 1 hit allowed. Now, only 2 runs scored. He did a good job of getting ground balls when he had to get ground balls to get out of some stuff. He can get through the outing. And I don't think he's ever going to be a strikeout king in the majors, but I am a little bit, I guess, still concerned about his ability to get swing and miss at the major league level. I may have talked about this on the show once before. I was talking to Auburn University head coach Butch Thompson, and he talked about the head baseball coach, Butch Thompson, and he talked about kind of the layers of pitching, right? Goal number 1 is just throwing strikes, consistently throwing strikes. Goal 2 is what he called taking the sting out of the swing, which is getting guys to make suboptimal contact, getting ground balls, not giving up hard hit balls and things like that. Ritchie's sinker does really good work. The changeup is doing really good work as far as inducing ground balls and all of that. And then the third step of the pitching development is the swing and miss. I don't think Ritchie's at step 3 yet. He's not bad. I'm not saying he's bad. He can get there. He has all of the pieces to get there. I think the sweeper can be a weapon. I like what I saw from the curveball on Tuesday. That being said, they didn't chase it, and he didn't get swing and miss on it. I thought the shape looked good. It's got a little bit of a hump when it first comes out of the hand. We saw Max Fried with those sometimes. Again, I thought the shape looked good. I do think that it's been better, that it could be better as far as actually missing bats. But I just don't think he's there yet. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll look at the last few options right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. All right, other position players and pitchers who have struggled a little bit to impress this spring. This is not going to be shocking news to anybody, although it's really going to hurt the value of my signed baseball that I have on the shelf up here. Luke Williams. He is 2 for 20 in spring. He's drawn 1 walk. He does have a home run. He struck out 7 times. The caveats here with this, he has really high opponent quality. It's like 7.8. It's close to AAA. It's one of the higher numbers that you'll see in spring. Not a lot of guys get really above that level in spring. But the process just hasn't looked good. The strikeouts have been a problem. And when I watch him defensively, it's not better than anything anybody else is doing. I think that's really ultimately the problem here is there's so many candidates for that final bench spot. And so many of them offer other things that Luke Williams doesn't, right? Brett Wisely, if I remember right, has more speed than Luke Williams. Kyle Farmer, 1, has caught in his career, so he can be your emergency catcher. If Jonah Heim starts hitting well this season, then even before Sean Murphy's back, you could run a 2-catcher lineup. Have 1 at DH and 1 behind the plate, right? You give Baldwin a day off from being behind the plate. You let him DH. Heim's behind the plate. And all of a sudden, Farmer becomes your emergency catcher, right? So, like, he hits lefties. He offers that catcher versatility. It's just like you look at so many of these guys who are trying to get one of these spots, and they bring something that Luke Williams doesn't have. And Luke Williams just really isn't kind of holding his own in the spring competitions. I know we're not here to talk about Luke Williams. Like, nobody really ultimately, at the end of the day, cares that much about Luke Williams. It's just my observation is that he's really struggling this spring, and it doesn't feel like he's going to end up making the opening day roster just for the other options. Another one that I'm questioning a little bit about is John Gil. I'm a big John Gil fan. He has bulked up this spring. I saw a write-up the other day that kind of referred to him as a I think it was maybe the Fangraphs top 30 prospects, referred to him as a strong safety size now. And I haven't seen enough of him in spring to know if he's maintained all of the lateral movement and the speed and everything, right? Big part of his game last year was he attempted 64 stolen bases in Augusta. He's 1 for 1 this spring. And we haven't seen him at shortstop a lot. And at first I thought it was, okay, they're giving the other guys they're going to send down a chance to play short. And right after they sent down those other shortstop options, I think he had a start or he went into a game at shortstop right after. But I just haven't seen enough of him to know that all of that agility, that top end speed and everything that he had is still there. And I mean, obviously, being a shortstop, if he has to move off the position, there's places he can go. And you can be a shortstop and not be fast and get by. Corey Seager is not a fast shortstop, and he is fine. But it's just something that I'm paying attention to. Hopefully, I'll get to see enough of him this spring to kind of have an idea. I do feel like defense is probably the hardest thing to evaluate unless you just get a ton of eyes on somebody, simply because you're seeing just small snippets. If a dude takes 1,000 ground balls in a season and you see 20 of them, right, across 2 games or whatever, how good is your evaluation of the guy? It's just so hard to evaluate, especially because we don't have defensive stats for the minors outside of fielding percentage, which doesn't mean a lot because I've talked to plenty of official scorers in the minor leagues, and I'm not taking a lot of their words as gospel. One of the kind of the last guys that I've been wanting to be impressed by and haven't necessarily seen it as much as I wish I kind of had, I've already kind of mentioned him once here, is Jonah Heim. I do think he's a better option to be a catcher than Chadwick Tromp, Sandy Leone, or things like that. But right now, I think he's 3 for 18. He's got a double. He's drawn 3 walks to 3 strikeouts. it just and the opponent quality is 6.7, so it's just below AA. A lot of that's because these catchers stay in the game a little bit longer, especially when they're trying to learn some of these relievers that are coming in, so they're staying in the game longer to catch these guys, and they end up facing a lower opponent quality on the other side. But I think if he's able to hit, and I'm not saying he has to be the 2023 guy who hit 260 with close to 20 bombs and 100 RBI, right? But if he can hold his own, right? If he can hit his weight, he's listed at 220, maybe a little more than your weight, right? If he could do a little bit more than that, it gives you more flexibility to trust him back there without a drop-off so that you can then DH Drake Baldwin. Because my concern here is, and this is kind of all unfounded, but my concern here is that you're going to end up putting Drake Baldwin in the lineup 6 days a week. And he's going to be behind the plate for almost all of them because they don't trust Jonah Heim offensively. And so that like Heim would be like catching 1 day a week. And if you're going to do that, I am concerned that you have the potential of running Drake Baldwin down a little bit. Because, when Sean Murphy comes back, clearly you need Sean Murphy to hit so that you don't have to keep doing that with Baldwin. And when the summer gets here, you can't. You can't play Baldwin probably even any more than three games in a row before you got to give him a half day or whatever. You can't burn him out back there. I know he's young, but still. I think that's my concern is the process hasn't looked great. He doesn't look always that comfortable at the plate. The switch hitting, I haven't really felt like, oh yeah, he's totally a weapon when he turns around and goes out of the plate. And so I'd like to see a little better process from Jonah Heim so that I'm comfortable when we go into the season knowing that it's going to be a drop-off when you go from Baldwin to Heim. It absolutely is. I'm not saying it's not going to. But I don't want it to be like when you stick Nick Allen into the lineup. I'm sorry, Nick Allen. I'm a fan of Nick Allen. I keep using that as an example because Braves fans are very aware of how poor his offense was last year. I don't want it to be a Nick Allen situation at the bottom of the order when Jonah Heim's in the lineup, which that's what it would be if it was Chadwick Tromp or Sandy Leone. Nothing against those veterans, but the goal here is that Jonah Heim can hit his weight, right? Can have a batting average that starts with a 2, and ideally a slugging percentage that starts. I'd love it to get to 4, but even just the high 3s I think would be better than what you've gotten from some of the other options, right? We're not asking for much here. This has been Braves Today for Wednesday, March 11th. Do me a favor. Please like the video. Please subscribe, both here and at bravestoday.com. And some of you on the survey said you wanted some merch. bravestoday.shop has the merch. And if you have merch ideas, let me know. I will design those and add those to the website as well, like this cool metal coffee mug that says Braves Today. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.